Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mail Bag. This is, of course, the Mail Bag edition of the thing we put out here at AMC Movie News on Saturdays and Sundays, doing nothing but taking your questions from the mailbag. My name is John Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and I am so glad that you've decided to make us a part of your day. Now, I'm going to give you full disclosure, let you guys know. As some of you may know, I've been really sick since New Media Expo in Vegas, but I am feeling about 50% better, but I still have this congestion and this cough. So I know it's a little bit annoying, but I am going to be probably pretty much constantly sucking on halls and sipping on water and clearing my throat and coughing once in a while. I hope you guys will suffer me as we go through that. And I am not alone today. I'd like to introduce you to Now, I like to give everybody the weekends off. We are going to have other AMC Movie News staff on the show here and there as we go throughout the year. But generally speaking, I like to give staff the weekends off. And so I'm not here all by my lonesome trying to do all the talking by myself. My lovely wife, once again, Miss Ann Campea, is here helping us out today.
Thanks for having me.
She's going to be reading all the questions. And when we come to the end of the show, the second half of the show, once we've taken all the mailbag questions we have, we're just going to be taking your questions from the chat board. But I do want to let you know this. Chat board etiquette, all right? When it comes time to ask questions on the chat board, don't do two things. Don't copy and paste your question 50 times. It's okay if you do it a couple times, that's fine, but don't do it like 50 times. The second thing is, don't type it all in caps. Please. We will ignore the question if you just type your question all in caps and then copy it 50 times. Please don't do that. And it would also be kind of helpful too if when it comes time to ask questions, pardon me, when it comes time to ask questions, if you put the word question at the beginning of your statement, say, so question, John, why was Star Wars so awesome? So if you kind of phrase it that way, it'll make it a little bit easier and for us to proceed and go on with stuff like that. So listen, guys, I'm not going to waste a lot of time here today. We're going to jump right into it. So let's get to mailbag question number one. Ann, what do we got?
All right. Ellen M. writes, I absolutely loved Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in Batman Returns. My question is, with Ben Affleck playing an older Batman, would it be a good idea to consider recasting Michelle Pfeiffer to reprise her role of the seductive Catwoman? In my eyes, no one has played the role better, and I think hearing Pfeiffer is to reprise her role would generate tons of publicity and audience anticipation. Thoughts?
No. Don't get me wrong. Michelle Pfeiffer, as great as Anne Hathaway was, frankly, I thought Anne Hathaway as Catwoman was the best thing about The Dark Knight Rises. And there are a lot of things to like about The Dark Knight Rises, but I thought Anne Hathaway as Catwoman was, to me, the most pleasant surprise about The Dark Knight Rises. I thought Anne Hathaway would be terrible as Catwoman. I mean, I shouldn't say terrible because she's Anne Hathaway. She's an Academy Award-winning actress. She wasn't going to be terrible, but I didn't think it was a good fit. And then I ended up loving her as Catwoman. But being that as it may, when, 30 years from now, when I'm looking back over all the movies of the past, however many years, and I have to think of Catwoman, who is Catwoman in the movies, it's Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in Batman Returns was, to me, will always be the Catwoman I think of when I do instant word association. Who was Catwoman in the movies? Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer is one of the sexiest women to ever live. She is also one of the sexiest women 50 plus on the planet. But that being said, it's one thing to get a 40-year-old Batman. It's another thing to get a 56-year-old Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer is still, at 55, 56 years old, she's a quintessentially beautiful woman. No doubt about it. But at 55, 56 years old, is Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman? I don't see it. I don't see it. Now, don't get me wrong. I would happily hook up with Michelle Pfeiffer today. I'm sure Anne wouldn't even have a problem with me hooking up with Michelle Pfeiffer today.
As long as I get Ben Affleck wearing the bat suit.
And then she can get Ben Affleck wearing the bat suit, and it's all good. So I would totally hook up with Michelle Pfeiffer today. That being said, I still don't think she can play Catwoman at 55, 56 years old. And also remember, I think you need to look for age proportion. Because if you were to say to me, hey, John, if we're getting a 40-year-old Batman, how about a 40, 41, 42, 43-year-old Catwoman? Then there are actresses out there that I could say yes at 40, 41, 42, 43 that could still do Catwoman. I think there are. But I don't think you get a Catwoman that's like 15 years older than Batman, particularly once you're getting into your mid-50s. So for me personally, I wouldn't see Michelle Pfeiffer, even though she will always be the quintessential Catwoman to me. I don't see her playing a Catwoman today. I just couldn't see that for me personally. So you guys leave your thoughts, talk about amongst yourselves in the chat board there, and let me know what you think. Anyway, Anne, would you be down for Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman right now?
No.
No, I didn't think so. No.
It doesn't work.
What's next?
Okay, Charlie DiCarlo asks, hey guys and gals, really love the show. My question is, because award season is on its way, I was just thinking how interesting it would be if the Academy took into account all of the actors' films of that particular year. For example, with Matthew McConaughey having an incredible year, and it would be an automatic Best Actor of 2013 if all of his 2013 films collectively were taken into account. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm not a fan of that concept. Like, I see where you're coming from. Remember, the Academy Award for Best Actor is the category is not called Best Actor. It's actually called Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role. That is actually the full name of it. Best Performance, singular. Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role. Now, I wouldn't be completely opposed to the notion of a new Academy Award each year. One for, just say, flat out Male Actor of the Year, Female Actor of the Year, that took into account the entire year. That's an interesting thing because this year is the year of Matthew McConaughey, I think. Just when you look at, the 3 different films that he's appeared in this year. But the Academy Award has always been about singular movies. If you had like Collective of the Year, Daniel Day-Lewis would never have an Academy Award. Whereas you've had a guy like Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Get a guy like Channing Tatum, right? In the past 10 years, Channing Tatum has appeared in or has coming up 30 films. And that's not unusual for a working actor in Hollywood. 30 films Channing Tatum has, right? In the past 10 years and what he's got in development. Daniel Day-Lewis has 4 films. 4. So that means like you're never going to get a year where he would get something. And I don't think many people... Look, I said for a lot of years that the greatest actor of our generation was Russell Crowe. When you look at the sheer diversity that he brings to any role that he plays in, I think people who are real students of film understand how great of an actor Russell Crowe is. But, and I've always said a close second would be Daniel Day-Lewis. In the past 2 or 3 years, I've switched that. Daniel Day-Lewis to me is the actor of our generation. I think he's the greatest actor alive on the planet, and maybe the greatest actor of all time is Daniel Day-Lewis. So you get an actor like that. And if you're going to say that the Best Actor Award is for the collection of movies they did that year, well, then Daniel Day-Lewis would never have an Academy Award. And he's the greatest actor, I contend, probably to ever live. So, I don't like the idea of making the award for a collection. I don't mind having a secondary, less important award saying, for their collective work this year, Best Actor of the Year is... There's some merit to that. But that one award for best performance by an actor in a leading role, That should always be for singular. What do you think?
Sorry, I made a noise there. But I was just thinking that if you're playing a role or you're hard at work on one particular role that year, then you might just have that one movie that came out that year. So if you're trying to do a collective thing, it's some actors spend all their time kind of perfecting one role for one movie to come out that year, and some other actors like Channing Tatum are doing 5, 6,
just
7
crank
roles.
Crank them out.
So
Daniel Day-Lewis
how
is
does
like
that,
one film
how
every
is that
3
fair?
years.
Right.
One every 3 years or so. Samuel Jackson's doing like 15 films a year.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you balance that out? So I prefer keeping it single performance for a single movie. That's how I would do it. But your idea is interesting. It has some merit and deserves some conversation. Okay, what else do we got?
All right. Adam Robinson writes, hello to you all, kick-ass folks at Movie Talk, addicted to the show. My question is in regards to the role of Lex Luthor in Batman vs. Superman. No question, Cranston would be a great choice, but I think he would make a perfect Commissioner Gordon. On the other hand, we have rumors of Phoenix to play Lex Luthor. While I wouldn't mind it at all, it makes me wonder if Daniel Day-Lewis was ever offered the role. Sure, Daniel Day-Lewis is an expensive name, but I really, really want this mad genius to play a mad villain sooner or later.
Interested in doing a in doing a comic book film. There have been great actors. Anthony Hopkins, Sir Ben Kingsley. So, I mean, we've had great iconic actors who have stepped up and have done comic book films. But I don't know that I've ever seen Daniel Day-Lewis give any indication that he'd be interested in moving away from these really heavy, dramatic pieces to doing something like a Man of Steel or doing any kind of comic book film. Anyway, I got some people saying that there's some freezing going on with the video stream. Everything is rock solid on our side. Our upload is going great. So there might be some problems on YouTube's side. And if that's the case, if YouTube is having issues, there's nothing I can do about that. I can tell you that our upload right now is rock solid. So we will just keep going. Let me know. Let me know if there's anything else. Try refreshing the page and see what happens. Otherwise, we're just going to keep rolling along. So, Anne, what is our next question?
All right. The next question is from Myron, who writes, hi, guys. Love the show. My question is, whatever happened to the sequel to the movie Jumper? I heard there was supposed to be a sequel, but haven't heard any news.
Yeah, Jumper was an interesting movie. I was in Jumper. I was as an extra in Jumper. In the scene in London when he's in the pub. I was actually in that scene, so I got to be on set of that for a couple of days, which was kind of fun. And the mythology behind Jumper is really, really cool. A lot of really cool things about Jumper. But it kind of fell apart and it kind of failed on a narrative level. And it didn't meet, in my opinion, it didn't meet the potential that the mythology behind Jumper had. Because they laid out a really rich potential mythology. And it just never met that potential, in my opinion. Now, here's the thing. Jumper cost about $80 million to make. About $30 million to market, so it had about $110 million price tag. It made about $220 million at the box office, minus $70 million off that, roughly for movie theaters to keep their take. So you're looking at a movie that made about $150 million and took about $110 million to make and market. So the movie was profitable. The problem is, though, in looking at a sequel, and there are still whispers about a sequel. Doug Liman, who is the director of that, he also directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and he directed Swingers, I think, and a couple of others. Doug Liman is reportedly attached to direct, but they've been talking about doing a Jumper 2 for years now with absolutely no progress. I have to doubt that it's going to happen. Even though the film was profitable, I have to doubt it's going to happen, mostly because most audiences hated it. I think it had like a 14 or a 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The fan rating was also negative on it. So there's not a lot of, and the more years that go by, the less and less likely it is that a sequel gets put in production or gets greenlit. So while it is still listed as being in the pipe, it's been in the pipe for years with no movement. At this point, I've got to doubt it's ever going to happen. It's not impossible. It could, but I have to doubt at this point that we're ever going to see a jump or two for those reasons. All right, what's next?
All right, so let me preface the next question by saying this one has a possible Thor 2 spoiler, so please be warned if you haven't seen the movie. Will Taylor writes, "Hey everybody at AMC, I love your show so much. Anyway, John, what do you think about the end credit scene from Thor 2? Does it mean that Loki killed Odin and took his place? I didn't really understand it. Thanks."
Okay, so obviously we're talking Thor 2 here, and one of the things that happens at the end of the movie, so Anne gave the spoiler alert. Here's the deal with that. A lot of people asked, that because Odin at the end was actually Loki in disguise, that means Loki killed Odin. I have I never thought that for a second. I've never believed that. I always believed... my first assumption watching it was that, it's just Odin's not in the room. Loki tricked him to think that he was Odin. Odin's off somewhere else. Asgard is a big place. So I never thought for a second that he killed Odin or imprisoned Odin. I never thought that. And I would be very, very disappointed in Marvel if they set it up and said that, Loki killed Odin and took his place. Because that would make no sense whatsoever. That would be completely inconsistent with Loki. Because what they have shown us in Loki, and that Odin was off somewhere else doing some other Asgardian thing, smoking on an Asgardian blunt or something like that. I have no idea. Whatever Odin does when he's not sitting on his throne. But I never thought for a second that he killed him. I mean, maybe he did. But if Marvel says that Loki killed Odin, that I would be very disappointed in them, because that would be completely inconsistent with the character that they have set up already. So that's just my thought. All right. We got one more question, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, what do we got?
It's from Ethan Sheeper, who writes, "Hey AMC Movie Talk, my question is regarding the actor who will play a younger Han Solo. Do you think Disney will use the same actor who plays Han to play a younger Indiana Jones if they don't bring Mutt back? I think it would be really cool. What do you guys think, and who would you choose?"
Well, first of all, I don't like to answer questions that I was like, hey, who would you pick to play this character? Because there are 5 million actors out there, and everybody just rehashes the same 10 names over and over again, it seems like, for all of them. Idris Elba for everything. Robert Downey Jr. for everything. So generally speaking, I don't like to answer questions that are just, hey, who would you get to play this? What I do like about the question, though, is this whole concept of, now that Disney's got Indiana Jones and Han Solo again, and Harrison Ford played both, and there's nothing saying that Disney needs to get one actor to play both those guys, I never thought of the notion that Disney may get the same actor to play both. Now, here's another quick caveat, if you wish. There is nothing saying that Disney and Lucasfilm is going to have a young Han Solo movie of any kind. I know there have been rumors. I know there's been speculation. But let's be very clear here. There is nothing saying that Disney or Lucasfilm is going to have a young Han Solo anything in any of the future Star Wars films. That being said, let's explore the possibility. Let's say Disney and Lucasfilm do have a young Han Solo. We know at some point they're going to relaunch the Indiana Jones franchise. It's an interesting proposition saying, let's get whatever actor we hire. Let's say it's Nathan Fillion. Let's get Nathan Fillion to play the young Han Solo, and get him to play the younger version of Indiana Jones. Let's get Ryan Reynolds to play the young Han Solo and the young Indiana Jared Leto to play the young Han Solo and the young Indiana Jones. I mean, I've never really considered that Disney could do that, but there is nothing stopping them from doing it. And I'll tell you what, Chapboard, I think that would be kind of cool. they're completely separate franchises, so it doesn't matter if they get the same actor. But just almost a continuity in history, as Harrison Ford played both Han Solo and Indiana Jones. Disney says we are also going to get one actor to play the new Han Solo and the new Indiana Jones. I think that would be fascinating. And if you want to talk about, all the drama and the speculation and the theorizing that goes into who's going to play what character, can you imagine how big the anticipation would be to find out who's going to be not only Han Solo, but our future Indiana Jones at the same time? That would be kind of cool. I would be interested in seeing them doing something like that. So that would be kind of cool. Anyway, we have reached the end of all of our mailbag questions. So it is time for us to throw it over to you guys on the chat board. It is time to start throwing in some of your questions and your thoughts and things you'd like to see. Talk amongst yourselves. So you have a question for us? Throw it on in there. Anne is keeping an eye on the chat board. She is the one who's picking the questions out that get thrown in there. So, Anne, do we have any questions from the chat board already?
Yes.
What do we got?
We've got Garrett Ducker, who asks, "Hey, John and Anne, do you think we will see Wasp in Ant-Man?"
I think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to see Wasp and Ant-Man. I told this story before, but Joss Whedon told us directly that his first draft of the Avengers movie had Wasp in it. And actually didn't have Black Widow. The way Whedon put it was, he goes, my first draft of the Avengers was very waspy. That's how he put it. So he had Wasp in the first draft and had no Black Widow. Disney told him they wanted Black Widow instead of Wasp, so he swapped them out, and it worked out. So I would be surprised if we didn't see Wasp, because I know Whedon loves Wasp, and Whedon wants Wasp in there because he wanted Wasp in the first one, and it never happened. So I'm going to go so far as to say I will be surprised if we don't see Wasp. I'm not going to say we are. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I'll be surprised if she's not there. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think people love that relationship.
Yeah, even though Ant-Man won't be there. We already know Ant-Man won't be in the second Avengers.
Right. But she, I mean, Wasp was an integral part of the first Avengers.
Yeah, she really was. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah, Wasp and Ant-Man.
Yep.
So. Okay, so Raghu Seether Raman, sorry if I butchered your name. I heard about a Rocky spin-off film called Creed, and Michael B. Jordan playing Apollo Creed's grandson who wants to become a boxer and Rocky training him under his wing. Have you heard any updates?
None. We talked about that about 6 months ago, I think. This is when that word first came out about a new, Creed movie. And there was a lot of buzz about it for about 48 hours. And then the buzz all disappeared, and I haven't heard anything as far as development goes. I mean, I've heard about Michael B. Jordan moving forward on about 5 other films, but I haven't really heard about him starting anything with this Creed project. So was that just a lot of hype when it first came out? Sometimes what happens is, yeah, these talks happen, but then those talks get reported as if they're in the final stages of signing a contract, when really they're still just talks. This movie may not happen. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, but I haven't seen anything concrete as far as development goes since that time. I've heard some people say, oh, this would be cool and this would be great, and so-and-so is talking to so-and-so, and so-and-so has confirmed this, but I haven't seen a lot of movement on it myself since then. And maybe I've missed a few things, which is always possible. There's like 50,000 new movie facts that come out every day, and I miss some of them. So maybe that's the case, but as of right now, I haven't heard any concrete movement on it. All right. What's next?
Next question comes from Thomas Dixon, who asks, can any other comic book companies compete with Marvel and DC in their cinematic universe? Get better.
Yeah, it will take, but what it'll take is it'll take a major studio to get behind them. So let's say you got...
well, I know Dark Horse has tried to do some films, right? Or not actually Dark Horse, but some of the Dark Horse comics have.
But Dark Horse is actually owned by... Is Dark Horse now owned by Warner Brothers or owned by DC? Help me out there, guys. Let me know in the chat board. But I do believe Dark Horse is now owned by DC. Answer that in the chat board, guys, because I could be way wrong about that, but I think that's the case. But Let's say, I don't know, Milk and Cheese. Bonus points to you if any of you out there have read the comics of Milk and Cheese. I think the funniest comics I've ever read in my life. Maury Povich. Anyway, so let's say the comic Milk and Cheese, they want to make a movie out of it. Or some other smaller title or smaller comic book company. I believe it is possible for them to do it, but what it would take is it would probably take a... I'm getting people telling me in the chat board that Dark Horse is still independent. So I'm guessing, but some people saying, no, people are now confirming Dark Horse is owned by DC. Okay, so anyway, what it would take for one of these smaller comic book companies, these smaller independent comic book companies, sure, they could compete, but not on their own. What they would need is, say, like a Paramount Pictures. Much like DC is really buoyed by Warner Brothers. Marvel is financed and backed and propelled by Disney. What it would take is for a major production company like a Paramount, a Universal, maybe even a Lionsgate. Lionsgate would be an interesting thing. To come along and really get behind it. And stake a lot of its future in it and put hundreds of millions of dollars into it. At that point, smaller independent titles could compete with like DC and Marvel stuff that we see on the big screen. But it would take that. It would take a major infuse of cash with a major backer who goes all in on it. Other than that, I don't see it happening. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong about that. But that's just my initial opinion.
Well, and a good story too, with anything.
Oh yeah. You need that. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Normal Comrade asks, John, do you think there will be a new Aliens movie?
I gotta think at some point there will be. I mean, it's just I don't. There's nothing in the works right now. I know Ridley Scott is trying to get another Prometheus movie done. He's trying to get a Prometheus sequel done, which will probably tie even more into the aliens mythology. But I actually don't even think that's going to happen. And other than that, I don't think there's any real movement on any new Aliens film of any kind. But Aliens is such a profitable, recognizable, established, almost classic property in Hollywood that at some point they're going to make another Aliens movie. It may not be in the next 5 years, but I think at some point something will come along. I do.
All right. Next question is from Shaku77. What are the chances of The Tick going to the big screen?
You remember I said Milk and Cheese is the funniest comic I've ever read?
Why that was
maybe a tie for Milk and Cheese was The Tick. The Tick, the original black and white comics of The Tick with the author and the urchin and Chairface and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the cartoon The Tick was good, but it just was not as funny as the original comic strips of The Tick. That was just, that and Milk and Cheese were just like some of the funniest stuff you'll ever read. So what was the question? Would we ever see a Tick movie?
Yep.
I don't think so. It failed as a TV show fairly fast. Because remember, they did a live action show, Putty from Seinfeld, was The Tick. And that, I don't even think that lasted one season. And the animated show didn't have a lot of success. And I'd love to see it. I would pay a lot of money to see a Tick live action film that was really faithful to the original comic. I think it would be hilarious. I just don't know that it would get an audience because their efforts to get an audience for it so far have failed pretty badly. So I don't think we're going to see the Tick live action, but man, it would be awesome. All right, what else we got?
Sad. Matthew McConaughey asks, what do you think the over-under for Godzilla will be opening weekend? Wow.
Hard to say without a new trailer. I didn't like the first teaser trailer. There's a difference between giving everything away in a trailer and giving nothing. And I felt like the first teaser for Godzilla gave us nothing. Absolutely nothing. Much like the first Interstellar trailer. I didn't like that either. But it's going to be big. I'm going to give the over-under on the opening weekend for Godzilla. I'll set the over-under at 55 million. 55 million is what I'll put the over-under at right now. I reserve the right to change that estimate after I see the first full trailer. but I'm going to set the over-under on $55 million. That is a lot of money. So those of you in the chat board, say over or under. Do you think the new Godzilla movie will make over $55 million opening weekend or under $55 million? But that's the line that I'm setting. Okay, what else we got?
Okay, Johan Inconstant asks, should Marvel have Batista promote Guardians through WWE because he's returning on the 20th and would be a great marketing stunt for Marvel? Thoughts?
You're crazy if you don't think that the reason Batista is returning to the WWE is specifically to market Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a reason why every time a new Fast and Furious movie with The Rock in it is about to come out, that sometime before that, The Rock returns to the WWE. There's a reason for that. I have no doubt that the main reason Batista is going back to the WWE at this point in time is to give push and awareness and marketing to Guardians of the Galaxy. No doubt about that whatsoever. So yes, you're absolutely 100% guaranteed to see a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy advertising during WWE programming. And you're going to hear Dave Batista himself talk a lot about Guardians of the Galaxy. I absolutely guarantee it.
I am hoping for a Batista-Brock fight during WrestleMania, but I think that's just me.
I've wanted that fight for a long time. Okay.
A lot of people are saying over for Godzilla.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of overs, a few unders, yeah.
Okay, so Madara Uchiha asks, can we see a Naruto Dragon Ball Z animated movie in the big screen after Dragon Ball Evolution? I think real-life adaptation of these kinds of genres will not work.
Animated film won't work either. No, it won't attract an audience. Yeah, so no, I don't think we're going to see a Dragon Ball Z film on the big screen. It won't attract an audience big enough to justify doing it. And really, at this point, my whole feeling is if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, why do you want it? Like, seriously, why do you want it? What's it going to do for you? I don't think it'll do anything for the Dragon Ball Z fan community whatsoever. They took a shot at it. Nobody wanted to go see it whatsoever. There's no more motivation for it. So while it might be fun to see, it just won't attract an audience. So I don't think we're going to see a Dragon Ball Z movie of any kind, animated or otherwise.
All right, next question.
Next question.
Adrian Munez asks, what happened to the Queen bio?
Okay, the Queen bio is happening. It did have Sacha Baron Cohen attached to play Freddie Mercury for years. And then at the last minute, Sacha Baron Cohen and Queen had a difference of opinion and they went their separate ways. Apparently it was amicable. Nobody hated each other. They just had different visions for how Freddie was going to be portrayed. And after years of being attached to the film, Sacha Baron Cohen, who was Borat, left the Freddie Mercury biopic. And now, you'd have to look up his name, but the young actor who played Q in Skyfall, which Anne and I watched again last night, yes. As a matter of fact, watched Skyfall again last night. The young actor who plays Q in Skyfall, the new computer hacker nerd kid, he is now going to play Freddie Mercury. So the Queen biopic is still on. It is moving forward. They have a new lead actor playing Freddie Mercury, and I would expect in the next couple of months to hear some more details coming out.
All right. Next question comes from Marcos Lopez, who asks, thoughts about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, being the bridge towards Age of Ultron?
I am not sure that Captain America is going to be the bridge to Age of Ultron. I think, what would make sense is Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be the bridge to Age of Ultron. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is the film that's immediately leading into the next Avengers film. So it's kind of seemed to me now, while I believe Guardians of the Galaxy will be the true bridge into Age of Ultron or Avengers 2, it would make sense that they start dropping some hints in Captain America 2. That would only make sense. Give us a few sneak peeks at something, allude to a few things, introduce us to a character or two who are going to play key roles. But I think the true bridge going into Avengers 2, since it's the film that happens right before Avengers 2, is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right. Next question comes from Aman Ilyas, who asks, will Leonardo DiCaprio win the Academy Award this year for Wolf of Wall Street?
I don't think so. And it sucks for Leonardo DiCaprio. He gave a great performance in Wolf of Wall Street. He gave an Academy Award deserving performance in Wolf of Wall Street. However, I think Chiwetel Ejiofor happened to give a little bit better of a performance in 12 Years a Slave. I think there's an argument to be made that Joaquin Phoenix gave a little bit better of a performance in Her. I think there's an argument to be made that, pardon me, that perhaps Matthew McConaughey might have given a little bit better of a performance in Dallas Buyers Club. It's a stacked year. Dennis and I were talking about this the other day, actually. This is a stacked year in the Best Actor category.
Yeah.
I honestly, I cannot remember a year in the past 10 years that has been more stacked than the performances we're going to see in the Best Lead Actor category this year. We had some incredible performances this year, and so therefore I don't think it's going to be Leo's year. It's possible, and he would deserve it if he got it, but I just don't think it's Leo's year this year for his performance in Wolf of Wall Street. He's going to get nominated, and rightfully so, but I think that it's just too stacked of a class this year for us to say that he's going to win. All right, let's take a few more.
All right. So Joe Mahoney asks, "Hey John, is there any updates on the Ferris Bueller sequel?" And to keep it up from the marathon, Phil G is Batman.
Pardon me. No, I don't think so. There were some whispers and rumors. Remember, there was that Ferris Bueller car commercial that came out around Super Bowl last year. That was actually pretty cool.
And everyone started freaking out.
And everyone started talking about it. And then all these talks started coming out about a Ferris Bueller's Day Off 2 movie. I don't think it's actually happening. It might. It's possible. But I think a lot of it is just the stuff that floated around as rumor and innuendo. I don't think we're actually going to see a Ferris Bueller's Day Off 2. It's possible. But I don't. If I had to put money on it, I would guess that it's not happening.
Okay. Next question is from Jazzpreet Don John. I'm sorry about that if I butchered your name. What happened to Red Skull at the end of Captain America, and will he return?
I think he'll return. Really, what do we know that happened to Red Skull? The rift of space and time opened up in front of him, and it sucked him in. I always kind of thought that what the Red Skull was sucked into and what he fell into looked a lot like what Loki just fell into at the end of the first Thor movie. Remember, Thor's holding on to him and holding on to Loki by the hand, and Loki's, I can't remember, I think Loki just lets go. I think he just wants to die at that point because he lets go and he falls off into that great abyss that I thought looked a lot like what the Red Skull was sucked into. If that's the case, and Loki survived and is just fine and well, I've got to believe we're going to see Red Skull again. I have to believe we're going to see Red Skull again. I think he got sucked off, but that he survived. That didn't sound right.
Filthy.
Bring on the filthy. Let me take that back. I think Red Skull got hurled into the darkness and the abyss. And I think he'll be back at some point. Whether it's going to be the same actor or not, I don't know. There's a lot of rumblings about that, but I believe he's alive and that we will see him again.
Man, and they do it in the comics all the time, right? Where they can figure out some way that somebody comes back.
Well, listen, we never saw Red Skull die.
Yeah.
I think we saw what happened to Loki happen to him. So we'll see how they handle that.
All right.
Let's do a few more.
Okay, a few more. Suprema System 13 asks, will we see Jon Schnepp's drawings from the 24-hour marathon?
Yeah, whenever, these drawings, remember, these take time. And Schnepp's also, he's got a movie he's trying to put together.
He's busy.
And finish off. He's had a girlfriend in the hospital. The Schnepp's girlfriend has been in and out of the hospital with some real complications from some surgeries she's had. I believe she's doing better now, which is great. So give him some time. But yeah, we will show his drawings that he committed to doing at the 24-hour movie marathon. We will show them on AMC Movie Talk when they're ready. And give us a couple months. Give us a couple months to really get those all ready and all of those put together.
All right, next question is from CyberDuelist589, who asks, with the rise of sports over there, could there be a movie about the 1987 Canadian men's hockey team? It had a great story behind it. Go Canada, go.
No. You could just for small market, Cineplex theaters in Canada. But the U.S. doesn't care enough about hockey, which is unfortunate. It's the greatest sport in the world. Hockey is. And there's just the people in the States just don't really appreciate it that much. Worldwide, it doesn't have much following as, say, baseball or something like that. So unfortunately, No, I don't think we're going to see a movie about Team Canada from any era, as a matter of fact.
All right. Next question comes from Hugh Hoyland 1, who asked, John, any news on a new director for Star Trek 3?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe they selected a director from Star Trek 3. I think it's the director from Attack the Block.
Oh, really?
At least that was heavily rumored. Hold on a second. Let me just look this up here quickly. Okay, yeah. Well, as of right now, there is no officially attached director for Star Trek 3. Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orci are returning to, as I just look up something here quick, are doing the screenplay again. But the last I heard, Joe Cornish, who wrote Ant-Man with Edgar Wright, and who directed that big indie fan favorite Attack the Block. Last I heard, he was going to be the director for Star Trek 3. Nothing's been officially announced. It may not end up being him, but the last I heard, Joe Cornish from Attack the Block, who co-wrote Ant-Man with Edgar Wright, was the leading candidate to direct Star Trek 3. That's the last I heard about it. Might be something different. Might be, but just so you know, that's the biggest word and the last I heard about it. All right, what's next?
K Hyde 504 asks, John, you weren't on Movie Talk when they talked about how Fast 7 is going. What are your thoughts on the current status?
They haven't resumed shooting, so really, there's nothing to say. I mean, at this point, until they do. So, I believe at this point they have not yet resumed shooting, and hopefully they do really, really soon.
Okay, so the next question comes from Tieguini84. Any Ready Player One movie in the works, and if so, any news about it?
It's funny. We've got a friend who was talking to us a lot about Ready Player One. As far as I know, no. I do believe I heard that somebody bought the movie rights, but people buy the movie rights to everything doesn't mean, 1 in every 1,000 things that have their movie rights sold actually become a movie. As far as I've not heard of any actual movement or any legitimate concrete development on a Ready Player One movie yet, but I keep hearing it's such a great book. I haven't read it yet, but we've got a friend really encouraging us to read it. So I'll probably pick it up sometime this year. But as far as, not that I know of, there's no movement yet, but we could hear something announced this year.
I would be interested to see how they do it, because I imagine there'd be a lot of CGI.
Oh, there would have to be. The way it's described to us, it would absolutely have to be.
Right. Okay. Christian Garcia asks, I heard there were talks about a Twister and a Faceoff sequel. What have you guys heard?
Haven't heard anything about that. Twister's interesting because you could make such a great spectacle out of a Twister sequel. A movie about tornadoes and things getting ripped up and mass destruction and blah, blah, blah. We love that crap. So there's some potential there. And what was the other one? Face-Off. I loved the original Face-Off.
John Travolta and
Nick Cage.
That was classic.
That movie is like 6 degrees of awesome.
Yeah.
I love the original Face-Off. If I let you suck on my tongue, would you be grateful? There's so many great lines in that movie. I've heard nothing about a sequel. Doesn't mean not happening. You've asked me on the spur of the moment, hey, have you heard about this? Off the top of my head, I can't remember hearing about it. So, although I'd be all for a Face-Off 2, I just haven't heard about it. Okay, last question.
Oh, okay. That's hard. Colby Bean asks, will we see a Lincoln Lawyer 2?
Speaking of Matthew McConaughey, Lincoln Lawyer is a great movie. It really is a great movie. I loved it. I mean, I don't know that I would have nominated it for Best Picture that year, but it certainly would have been in the discussion of the 20 or so films that year that should have at least been considered for a Best Picture nomination. I don't know that I would have given Lincoln Lawyer a nomination, but I certainly would have talked about it. I enjoyed that movie thoroughly. McConaughey was great in it. William H. Macy was great in it. The whole cast is a really good story. Had great narrative, great pacing. Really solid movie. And I know there were plans. They wanted to make a second one. I know I talked to McConaughey personally, and I know he really loves this character. And they were wanting to get another one moving as quickly as possible. Obviously, that didn't happen because it didn't kind of make the bank that they were hoping it was going to make. But I believe the embers are still burning. I believe that the fire is still there. I'm going to guess there will be a Lincoln Lawyer 2 at some point. But I think the longer we get away from the original, the less and less likely that becomes. I hope they do it. I know they wanted to do it. Let's see what happens. All right, folks. Well, that will do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us here on AMC Mailbag. We really appreciate your participation and everything. Remember, anything that I say, it's all opinion. And that's the best thing about being film fans, is that we all have different opinions about films. We look at one, imagine 10 people standing around a piece of art hanging on a wall. Even though all 10 people are looking at the same thing, we all see 10 different things. And that's the beautiful thing about art, and that's the beautiful thing about film. Just because I say one movie's good and one movie's crap doesn't mean you should think that movie's good or that movie's crap. Your opinion is no less or more valid than mine or Ann's or anybody else in AMC Movie Talks, or anybody else's in the chat boards. And that's what makes it fun to be a film fan and to talk about movies. So thank you so much for joining in the discussion, the debate with us. Really appreciate your participation. We will be back again for Mailbag next weekend. But tomorrow, of course, AMC Movie Talk returns. I will be back on AMC Movie Talk tomorrow, no matter how bad I'm coughing. I will be back on. Don't forget, guys, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jon Campia. You can follow Ann on Twitter. Ann, where can people find you?
At Ann Campia.
Just that simple.
Yep.
Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Once again, my name is Jon Campia for AMC Movie News. And until next time, bye-bye.